Here's the first part of your script. Imagine if you could understand exactly what he's thinking, his desires, fears, and hidden motivations. What if you had the power to read his mind effortlessly? Most women struggle to decipher what men truly mean, often misinterpreting signals and falling into emotional traps. But today you'll discover the 5 key steps to unlocking his mind, understanding his intentions, and gaining an upper hand in any relationship dynamic. And the last step? It's the most powerful of them all. It's the one that changes everything. But before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Female Red Pill, like this video, and comment below if you've ever felt frustrated trying to understand what a man is thinking, because what I'm about to reveal could change your perspective forever. Now let's begin. The ability to read minds isn't about magic or manipulation. It's about understanding male psychology on a deeper level. Most women make the mistake of assuming men think like them, but the truth is, male thought patterns are vastly different. If you approach a man's mind from a female perspective, you'll always misunderstand him. That's why step 1 is crucial. Step 1. Observe his nonverbal cues. A man's words can deceive, but his body never lies. If you want to read his mind, start by analyzing his nonverbal behavior. Research from Dr. Albert Mehrabian, a pioneer in body language studies, shows that over 90% of communication is nonverbal. That means his posture, eye contact, and micro-expressions reveal far more than his words ever will. For example, when a man is genuinely interested in you, his body leans toward you subconsciously. His feet point in your direction, and his pupils dilate. On the other hand, if he's distant, uninterested, or emotionally detached, his body will shift away, and his eye contact will be minimal. But here's the key. Don't just focus on individual gestures. Look for clusters. A man crossing his arms once doesn't necessarily mean he's closed off, but if he avoids eye contact, keeps his arms crossed, and steps away slightly, his subconscious is screaming, "I'm not engaged." This is where most women fail. They listen to a man's words instead of reading his actions. A man might say, "I'm just really busy right now." But if he's actively making time for other things while ignoring you, his body language and actions contradict his words. Always trust the unspoken messages over the spoken ones. Step 2. Decode his conversational patterns. Men communicate differently than women, and if you want to read his mind, you must understand the underlying structure of his words. Research from Dr. Deborah Tannen, a linguistics expert, shows that men use language more for status and problem-solving rather than emotional connection. This means that when a man speaks, he often reveals more in what he doesn't say than in what he does. For example, if you ask him about his day and he gives a short, factual answer without elaboration, it likely means he doesn't see the conversation as a means of connection. But if he shares details, opinions, or even complains about something, it's a sign he trusts you and is opening up. Another key indicator? How he reacts to your emotions. If a man quickly jumps into solution mode instead of validating your feelings, he's not dismissing you, he's thinking like a man. Women often mistake this as a lack of empathy, but in reality, his brain is wired to fix problems, not dwell on emotions. Want to test this? The next time you share a frustration, observe whether he tries to solve it immediately, or if he asks deeper questions. If he's problem-solving, he sees your issue as something to fix rather than something to emotionally connect over. This small shift in understanding changes everything. And remember, the last step in this process is the most powerful of them all. If you think these first 2 steps have been revealing, just wait until you hear the final one. Here's part 2 of your script. Step 3. Recognize his emotional triggers. Most women assume men are emotionally distant or incapable of deep feelings, but this is a myth. The truth is, men experience emotions just as intensely as women. They simply express them differently. If you want to read his mind, you need to understand what triggers his emotional highs and lows. Dr. Robert Glover, in his book No More Mr. Nice Guy, explains that men are conditioned from a young age to suppress emotions, especially vulnerability and sadness. Instead of expressing them openly, they channel their emotions into action, withdrawal, or even silence. But if you pay close attention, you'll start noticing the patterns. For example, when a man is under stress, he often retreats. He may spend more time alone, immerse himself in work, or even become distant. Many women take this personally, assuming he's losing interest or pulling away. But in reality, He's engaging in what psychologist Dr. John Gray calls the cave response, a natural male coping mechanism where he isolates himself to process emotions internally. If you push him during this phase, he'll resist, feeling smothered or misunderstood. But if you give him space and let him come back on his own terms, he'll associate you with comfort rather than pressure. And here's the real secret. When he emerges from his emotional retreat, that's when he's most open to connection. Want to test this? The next time he pulls away, don't chase him. Instead, focus on your own life. Watch how he naturally gravitates back toward you when he feels safe. This is one of the most powerful ways to gain insight into his emotional world without pushing him away. Step 4. Identify his deepest fears. If you truly want to understand a man's mind, you need to know what he fears the most. Men rarely vocalize their insecurities, but they manifest in their actions, choices, and behaviors. The most common male fears in relationships include loss of freedom. Many men equate commitment with a loss of personal autonomy. If he suddenly becomes hesitant or distant when discussions about the future arise, he may be struggling with this fear. Failure. A man's identity is often tied to his success. If he feels like he's failing in his career or personal life, he might withdraw, become irritable, or act unpredictably. Not being enough. Deep down, most men struggle with the fear of inadequacy. If he avoids deep conversations or downplays his emotions, it could be because he's afraid of being judged or seen as weak. The key is to observe how he responds in different situations. Does he avoid serious topics? Does he deflect when you ask about his goals? Is he overly competitive or defensive? These behaviors are often defense mechanisms hiding deeper insecurities. And here's where most women go wrong. They try to fix these fears with reassurance. But men don't respond to words. They respond to experiences. If you want him to feel safe, show him, not just tell him, that he's enough by respecting his space, supporting his goals, and letting him lead when necessary. By now, you're starting to see how powerful these insights are. But there's still one final step, the most important of them all. Here's part 3 of your script. Step 5. Read between the lines of his actions. This is the ultimate key to reading a man's mind, understanding that his actions will always speak louder than his words. Women often make the mistake of focusing on what a man says rather than what he does. But if you pay attention, his behavior will reveal his true thoughts and feelings more clearly than anything else. Dr. Sean T. Smith, author of The Tactical Guide to Women, emphasizes that men are action-oriented. They don't express emotions the way women do, but they show them through their consistency, reliability, and effort. If a man truly values you, his actions will align with his words. If they don't, he's telling you everything you need to know, without saying a word. For example, if a man says, "I really like you, but I'm just not ready for a relationship right now," believe the second part of his sentence, not the first. If he says he's too busy to see you but has time for everything else in his life, his priorities are clear. On the other hand, if he consistently makes time for you, checks in on you, and follows through on his promises, it means he values you more than his words alone might suggest. One of the biggest mistakes women make is assuming that if they just wait long enough, a man will change. But a man's actions in the present are the clearest indicator of his future behavior. If he's inconsistent now, he'll be inconsistent later. If he avoids commitment now, he'll avoid it later. Understanding this principle can save you years of frustration. But here's where it gets even deeper. Men also reveal their subconscious feelings through small actions that most women overlook. Does he protect you in subtle ways, like walking on the outside of the sidewalk? Does he remember tiny details you mentioned in passing? Does he make an effort to make your life easier, even in small ways? These signs indicate that, on a deeper level, he feels connected to you, even if he doesn't verbalize it. The final revelation. What this means for you. Now that you know these 5 steps, you have a powerful advantage. You no longer have to guess what he's thinking or overanalyze every text message. Instead, you can observe his body language, listen to how he speaks rather than just what he says, identify his emotional triggers, recognize his deepest fears, and most importantly, analyze his actions. Most women navigate relationships blindly, hoping a man will eventually reveal his true feelings. But with this knowledge, you're no longer at the mercy of uncertainty. You can now see through the confusion, the mixed signals, and the half-truths. And if you've watched this far, tell me in the comments, Which of these 5 steps surprised you the most? Here's the final part of your script. Mastering the art of reading his mind. Now that you have the 5 key steps to understanding what a man is really thinking, you hold an advantage that most women will never have. While others struggle with mixed signals and emotional confusion, you will be able to see through his words and behaviors with clarity. But knowledge alone isn't enough. You have to apply it. The next time you're with a man, pay attention. Watch how his body responds when he's around you. Listen not just to his words, but to the way he speaks. Give him space when he pulls away, and observe how he returns. Look at his actions over time, not just in isolated moments. When you start doing this, you'll realize that men aren't as complicated as they seem. They're simply different. The truth. Most women ignore. The reason most women fail at understanding men isn't because men are mysterious. It's because women project their own way of thinking onto men. They assume that men communicate like women do, that they express emotions the same way, and that words hold the same weight for them. But once you accept that men operate differently, everything becomes easier. This is why so many women get blindsided in relationships. They believe a man's words over his actions. They push for emotional connection when he's in his cave mode, and they misinterpret his problem-solving nature as a lack of care. But you now know better. Instead of reacting emotionally, you can step back and see what's really happening. This knowledge doesn't just help you in dating, it's a superpower in every aspect of life. Whether it's with a boyfriend, husband, coworker, or even family member, understanding male psychology allows you to navigate relationships with confidence. Final thoughts and call to action. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most people. You now have the tools to read a man's mind, but the real question is, will you use them? Tell me in the comments, which of these 5 steps do you think is the most powerful? And have you ever misread a man's intentions before? And if you haven't subscribed to Female Red Pill yet, now is the time. We dive deep into relationship truths that most people won't tell you. So like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and check out these 2 videos on the screen right now. Because if you found this eye-opening, what I reveal in those will change how you see relationships forever.